Hey y'all, this is Hamza, and I'm super happy we get to hang out for a little bit. Hey y'all, this is Hamza. I just want to start off by saying thanks for joining this podcast. I know you could have been doing a lot of other things and you're here right now. So I've recorded this like 20 times now, and this is my final attempt, hopefully. And I'm kind of getting the hang of it, so bear with me if you hear a lot of ums and random sounds. But I just want to start off this podcast by introducing myself and letting you guys know what to expect on here. So the purpose of this podcast is mainly a medium for me to talk about the things that I'm passionate about and delve deeper into these things in a more concise, episodic manner. If you follow me on Instagram, you're kind of aware that I love talking about things that I'm passionate about, whether it's movies, whether it's music, whether it's dentistry, Tesla, Harry Styles. I have a lot of things that I love to get into deeper detail about. So I had a lot of friends and families that were pushing me to kind of do this in a blog form or a podcast form. And so here I am now giving this attempt. The other reason I wanted to do it, there's a couple of reasons, so I'm kind of breaking them down into notes for you. But I also wanted a medium where I can just kind of express my thoughts, my experiences in more detail rather than just typing it all out on Instagram. I'm not really a big talker. If you met me in person, I'm pretty introverted, but this podcast kind of gives me an ability to further express my thoughts without feeling the pressure or limitations that I do in like a public space. I also wanted to kind of give it a chance to have more intimate conversations with the people I love on this podcast and have guests on that I really look up to and admire, and have them talk about things that they're passionate about or things that they love, and gain a deeper understanding for those things through this podcast. I have a lot of friends that are super interesting in all different aspects of their lives, and I wanted to be able to share those people with you guys and have you gain further insights about things that they're passionate about. So that's going to be another goal, is to have a lot of guests on here that I can just riff with and talk about different things and learn a lot about different things. It's also kind of a selfish way for me to have some dedicated time where I can talk to these people and enjoy some personal time with them. I think we live in a world where it's really hard to schedule time to talk to somebody or catch up with someone, and this podcast gives you that extra bit of accountability to have that friend on and just have a nice conversation with them. And then for me to be able to save these conversations is even more exciting to me, because there's been so many times when I've had incredible conversations with friends and thought back and been like, man, I wish I could have saved that at some point, and now I kind of do. So I'm excited for that. The other reason I started this podcast is I really wanted to just challenge myself to do something that I've never done before and push myself out of this comfort zone. And I love to create things. I love to be creative in all different aspects, and I think this podcast is going to challenge me in a different scope that I've never done before. I love photography, I love cinematography, and this whole audio component is something I've never done before, so I thought that would be pretty fun. And finally, it's just a way for me to re-inspire myself to do the things that I'm really passionate about. During the last 2 years, I had a pretty rough patch where I went through some pretty significant challenges in life that made me go to a really dark place, and I want to kind of get back into the things I used to love doing, and I'm slowly getting there. And I think this podcast is going to be that final push for me to do the things I love and be able to talk about those things. And I've had moments recently where I'm like, watching a movie I love and thinking to myself like, oh, this would be great to talk about on the podcast, or seeing a new artist and listening to them and being like, oh man, I can't wait to share about this with the people that I'm friends with. And to know that I can do that now on this podcast and just have these episodes where you guys can listen to why I love Harry Styles or why I'm so into Spider-Man or Batman, like random silly things like that might not apply to you in each episode, but there might be one or two episodes that you might find interesting, and you can just click and listen to those anytime you want, and I think that's awesome. So yeah, on to the next part is mainly what this podcast is about. So you might have kind of picked up on it, but it's literally going to be like a passion project podcast. So it's going to be a podcast that in a more diluted way just focuses on passions, and whether it's things that I'm passionate about, things that my friends are passionate about, it's just going to be a podcast where we can talk about things that we really hold close to us. And I think when we're kids, we have this deep love for certain things, whether it's a toy or a cartoon or even a type of food or whatnot. And I think as we grow older, we start to like lose that childlike sense of wonderment about things. And I want to have this podcast bring that back out of us. I want us to be able to nerd out about things and talk about things that we really love without any sense of judgment or limitations on that. I want you to be as vulnerable as you want to be, or as open as you want to be, and talk about comic books or whatever you think that might sound silly or nerdy or childlike to other people. On this podcast, it's more than accepted, and it's welcomed, if anything. If you know me and if you follow me on Instagram, like I'm into the most childish stuff, and I honestly don't care, because I feel like that's what really makes us unique in our own individual ways. And mind you, it doesn't have to be childlike. It could be adult stuff that you're really into, like taking care of plants or building computers or reading books and anything like that. If there's something you're really passionate about, I want to hear about it and I want to learn about it. So that's kind of what the point of this podcast is. I also want to have a place where we can learn about things. So if you, the listener, have always been curious about the Star Wars movies and you never got around to it, well, I'm going to have some episodes where we talk about it and why it's so important to me and why I think it's such a cultural phenomenon and something that is worth watching no matter who you are. We'll get into that. And I think just when I look back in my life, my favorite teachers are the teachers that are super passionate about that subject matter, whether it was like, ironically, one of my favorite classes in undergrad was organic chemistry, and it wasn't because of the actual material, it was how the material was presented to me and the teacher that presented it. He was just such a great person. He was so into it, and he would use the best metaphors, and he somehow managed to merge certain reaction mechanisms with the movie The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And I love movies, so like to be able to merge those two and make it something interesting made me not only love the class, but like I passed that class and I ended up tutoring people. And yeah, it's just, I love that. And I think my desire, besides this being a selfish podcast, is I want you guys to be able to leave this podcast learning something and being able to approach a conversation with somebody and surprise them with the fun facts you just know because you listened to this random podcast about Pokemon or I don't know, something random. So I'm really excited about that. In terms of who is going to be on this podcast, like I said, it's going to be a lot of people that are in my life that I know, that I look up to, that I love. There will definitely be people that I have had, excuse me, about to sneeze. Okay, not coming. But yeah, a lot of my friends are super nerdy and I'm like trying to hold back a sneeze. Okay. Yeah, so I have a lot of friends that, have these unique perspectives on life and things that I'm excited to have on here. And then I also have family members that have inspired me in different ways, whether it's my cousin who I grew up with or my brother who is an idiot but also has his really interesting takes on things that I eventually will have on here once you guys are ready for him. And yeah, that's about it in that front. How long will each podcast be? So I think each podcast is going to range from 30 minutes to an hour. More than likely, the solo episodes will be, 20 to 30 minutes with me just talking about certain things. And then the hour long would more than likely be the ones with the guests on them, because I don't think I'll have that much to talk about. If they do end up being longer, I'll always try to edit them down to make them concise. I'm still working on the whole editing aspect, so bear with me. And then, yeah, I'll try to make the podcast episodic in the way that they will be released, probably bi-weekly, so every 2 weeks, so twice a month. And I will try to give you a heads up on Instagram about what the podcast will be like or what you can expect from it. And I would like to have a Q&A at the end of every podcast, so you guys can ask whatever you want or whatever you're curious about. And I'll try to make it a little consistent in nature in terms of letting you know what the next podcast will be about or what to expect on it. That way the questions can kind of revolve around that subject matter or that person. And I will be recording these, so I'm currently recording this. I will upload it to YouTube. Not sure why I'm doing this. It's just another way to challenge myself to incorporate the video and the podcast, and that way, for people that want to watch me babble on YouTube, you're more than welcome to do that. But don't get too excited. There's nothing super exciting on these videos besides me just staring at my computer notes and talking. But if I do have guests on here, that'll be fun because you'll get to see all these guests' pretty faces and see their reactions and whatnot. Some interviews may be online or over long distances because a couple of my friends live in different various cities and whatnot, so those will probably be done over Zoom, and I'll pre-record them and upload them on the same YouTube channel. If you're curious if you can be on this podcast and you're not like a close acquaintance or somebody that I fully know yet, I definitely am open to that, and I'd love to have people on here that want to talk about passions. But I'm going to kind of hold off for now and focus on the friends and family first, and then expand from there depending on how things go. I'm not expecting anything out of this podcast. Like I said, it's a very selfish attempt for me to just try this, and I'm hoping that you guys get a lot out of it. Please feel free to give me feedback or critique me on anything. I'm more than happy to listen to it. And if you have any questions about it or want to know more about me, please feel free to message me on Instagram or anything. Until then, I will kind of delve further deep into who I am as an individual and a little bit more about me, but I just want to kind of give you guys a heads up about this podcast and what to expect with it. If you don't know me yet, or if you just stumbled upon this and you're trying to figure out who I am, my Instagram is @Mogaj, MOGAJ, and there's more than enough information about me on there, so feel free to go on there. But if you already know me and you just want to kind of know more about my love for things, then definitely stay tuned to this podcast because we're going to be diving into a lot of different things. And so next episode, what you can expect is I'm going to be having a guest on here. He's somebody that's really near and dear to me. He's been there for me through a lot of stuff recently, and I'm excited to have him on here. And I think he will definitely make it an interesting podcast because he will bring out a side of me that you guys might not have seen before. So, thanks again for listening to me. I look forward to having you guys on here again. And this is Hamza. Thanks for coming to hang out with me.